flustered, so sorry about that. Not sure what happened, but it just turned itself off. So anyway, I just wanted to say hi before I started, turn this on to my workspace. And so anyway, hi, we're going to be doing a painting of a cat, a picture that I took in my backyard a few years ago. So let me go ahead and I'm going to. So what I want to talk about tonight, I'm going to do just a little tiny bit about how I prepped to start this, how I did the drawing, looking for values in here. And then we're going to start by painting the background. So photograph. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about how much difference in light between light and dark I see on this one side of the cat to make it stand out. And then how dark or not dark the other side of the cat is compared to the background. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be looking at. And I had to make a decision. Do I paint the cat first and then paint the background? Or do I paint the background and then paint the cat? And after quite a bit of thinking, I decided to mask the cat off, and I'm going to paint the background first. But in the meantime, let me show you some of my prep work here. Got to be where I can see it. So the first thing that we did, and I actually did some of this in one of my classes, is that we were doing some little sort of gestural drawings of cats. And so I did a painting of the cat without actually doing any pencil drawing at all, just to sort of get the feeling of where the light and dark places were on it. And then did a rather complete drawing of the cat to get the features of the face and get the sense of what the shape of the cat was. And so then this is being transferred onto my watercolor paper. And I've used the PBO masking fluid to mask off the cat. So I can now do a loose painting in the background for where the cat is sitting. I've mixed up in my pan some of my basic colors to start with. In this pan right here, I have permanent brown, which is a Daniel Smith color. It wasn't on your list, but to make it almost the same, burnt sienna with permanent rose will make the same kind of color. This is a purple. Once again, I went and pulled something that was in my pan and wasn't on the list, but this is Quinacridone Mauve. You can make a very similar color by mixing ultramarine blue with permanent rose. And then a little bit of burnt sienna was put in it to gray it down. This is yellow with sap green, and this is sap green with a little bit of permanent ultramarine blue mixed in it. And this mixture is burnt sienna with a little bit of ultramarine blue in it to sort of dull it down. So what I'm going to do first is that I'm going to go ahead and wet my page and loosely paint this background. Just make sure where am I? Yeah. You guys can see all of this okay?
Yes, we can. At least I can. So I'm sure everyone else can.
All right, because I have to sort of talk a little bit louder, and I got to remember to talk up a little bit because the mic is above my head here. So if you start getting to the point where you can't hear me very well, Roz, say, Margaret,
okay.
Speak up.
Margaret, okay.
When I do the recordings, I actually have a mic that I can plug in, but I can't plug it in for this because it takes all, then you can't hear me at all. Okay, so I'm going to start putting some colors back in here. And I'm thinking that I want to shift it a little bit from this very green gray to maybe having some purples in there as well. So I'm going to just do sort of a mixture of colors and let's just see what's going to happen here.
If you can move your work down a little bit, Margaret, then we can see the whole piece. Yes, better. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Great. Thanks for letting me know because I can't see it to tell what it's doing. I'm just sort of putting some random colors up here to be this fence area in the back. I need to think about the fact that it's going to be a little bit darker on this, be the right side of the cat. Let's just throw some of that in there. So this is just getting a really loose background in. Without worrying too much about what it's actually, I'm just sort of making this, there's a post that's sort of falling over that the cat is actually standing on here. And I want to get it a bit darker, so I'm going to add a little more ultramarine blue into this purple area. Yeah, that's going to get that a bit darker there. It's going to dry up to 20% lighter than what I have here. And so if I don't make it a little bit darker now, and I can come back in and do some more dark on it later, but not right next to the cat, because I've put this masking fluid on so that I can maintain that look of the edge of the cat. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little bit of lifting to pull back out some lighter spaces. So I've dampened my brush and I've dried it a little bit. And so this composition that I've got, if I do it the way the picture is, it's almost like a cross where we have a board going across here and then the cat coming down through the middle. And it's a very stable look. Now, whether I want it to be quite that strong, I'm not sure. You can see that the paint is starting to go back into those spaces, but it's still staying lighter than it was. And I'm going to lift a few bits here that will be leaves. And if I take my rag, I can lift them even more. I've probably shown you how to do clouds. Well, this is the same idea. And the top of that board is already masked out, so I don't have to worry about it. But that can come down. And where else? Okay. Now I need to get even a little bit darker in a few places. So let me do that before I do anything else. Yeah, let's get it with this red purple. So I'm doing ultramarine blue with that permanent brown mixture. And we're just going to find some more dark spaces here. And go. And maybe a little bit underneath of that board across the top, and find some spaces up in here. Don't want them too.
What was that mixture again, Margaret? The brown?
It was permanent brown, but if you don't have permanent brown in your pan, burnt sienna with permanent rose will make the same color combination. I'm just going to do a little dry brush in here to get some of that wood texture. So this is drying, but not super fast, so it's still a little bit on the wet side. And let's make it a little darker right in here by that ear, and then bring it across and find some there. Okay. Then I'm just going to add a couple more dark spaces up in there. And do I have this dark enough yet? Like I said, I'm not going to be able to change this right next to him. So I want to be sure that I get it as dark as I need to right next to the cat, even if other areas aren't as dark as they're going to be in the end. And
Margaret, what was that original teal color?
That original teal color is the PBO masking fluid. So the cat is all teal, and that is the masking fluid. So I want to go ahead and do some splattering in here.
Yay, my favorite.
I knew you would like this if I did some splattering. Roz is always trying to get me to splatter, and I'm not usually willing to be that adventuresome. But for this loose background, I think it's going to add a nice little touch to it and give that feeling of some of that mossy. Okay. Just looking at this, wondering whether I'm dark enough, because my next thing I've got to do is take the hairdryer to this a little bit and dry it, because I have to have it dry before I can take that masking fluid off. I'm going to have some leaves back in here. So I'm just sort of painting around some of them a little bit. And I want them to be somewhat, abstract. Been watching Emily Wheel paint. It's fun to learn from other people. Any of you that didn't watch her demo, we have a copy of it on the website, and she's a very loose painter and really likes doing abstract look to things. I just wanted this all pretty loose, so we didn't need to spend a huge amount of time on it. Darker green in here.
So Margaret, the teal color of the PBO, is that are there other colors that PBO comes in, or is that?
Yeah, PBO comes either in a gray or this teal color. And yeah, it comes in a natural color. Some of the masking fluids come with an orange in them. I hate it. It's just, I can't stand having that orange in the middle of what I'm doing. This teal at least is pretty neutral and doesn't upset, what I'm working on. I like the gray just a little bit better, but that last batch that I got was this teal color. I'm going to just lift a little bit of this paint off of the area where that masking fluid is, just to sort of speed our drying some. Okay, now I'm going to be turning on my hairdryer. So sorry, you guys, you're going to have to listen to this for just a minute. Cat doesn't want to listen to it. You can see these colors change as I dry this, which is think I've got this dry now. You can tell whether it's dry by if it feels cool to the touch. And now that it's this dry, I can touch it directly. If I'm afraid that it might still be fairly wet, I keep my hand a little tiny bit off of it. But with this, I can actually touch down onto there. Now, to take the masking fluid off, I have a piece of plastic that's a bit like those old crepe sole shoes that we had, but it has a very slightly tacky surface to it, but it's fairly stiff, and it will grab onto this and pick it off. And I've got to be a little bit careful because it's dirty. And if I rub across there very much, then I can bring the dirty stuff back into the play here. It's a disadvantage, one of the disadvantages of using this. And I also had thrown a couple little spots of this out into the background. So there's a few places to pull there. But now as this comes off, you can start seeing that I was able to get a really nice edge on here. A workshop that I took with Nancy Collins, she gave me a tip for putting this on to get really nice lines that I've been really happy with. Use a crochet hook. And with the crochet hook, so the crochet hook has a nice little tip on it. So you can get a fair amount of the PBO on it, the masking fluid on it. And then you can just take and use it like a brush and make marks here. And so lift them and pull them out. So it's able to get all these little hair marks around the edge, which would be quite time consuming to do if I'm going to paint around. Plus I couldn't do this loose of a background. But it is important if you're going to use masking fluid that you really pay attention to what your edges are, because they are going to be visible. So poorly put on masking fluid is going to show. So be aware that you're going to have to really pay attention to how that's done. But I always love this reveal where, you know, it was sort of ugly with that turquoise there and all dirty. And now I get to pick this off, and lo and behold, here's the cat. Now it is going to pull up some of my pencil lines, but fortunately, I hope I had them dark enough that they're not all going to come off, and I'll still be able to see where they are.
Can you use anything else besides rubber? That's rubber cement based, isn't it? That eraser?
No, don't use rubber cement. That's a whole different product. This is latex, but there's several different brands of it. Winsor Newton makes one called masking fluid. There's probably 3 or 4 brands of it. I'm trying to think of what some of the other brands are, but it's masking fluid, not rubber cement. Rubber cement will never come off of your painting.
Oh, I was referring, Margaret, to the stuff you're taking it off with.
Oh, that I'm taking it off with?
The eraser.
You know,
what kind of an eraser is that?
It's a special lifting tool, and you can slide it along with the masking fluid. And so they sell them, you know, with it. You can use your finger if you really work at it. And I also will sometimes bundle it up with itself and use that. I mean, I can use this little bit and pull it off that as well. But you have to get a little bit of it started before you can do that. So you need something that's tacky to help do it.
Okay.
Lifting tool is the easiest way. Done a lot of boat paintings over the years, and this is the method that I usually use for them, so that I can get a very loose background and then come back in and do a lot of detail on the boat itself.
So Terry Ann was telling us that the tool is referred to as a pickup eraser.
Pickup eraser or lift off tool.
Okay.
And they'll slowly wear down with time. The one that I've been using for years and years is ended up with all its ends sort of worn off. So don't worry about that. You're just using it as a tacky surface to lift with. Sure, I've got all these ones that were out in the way beyond here. All right, now we got to do the scary part. Get this cat working. Something that I'm going to do first, just because I want to sort of see where it is that I'm going to do a little definition on those eyes so I know where they are. This cat has what I would call eye makeup, a little dark line around the eye and then a little light line around that. And so I'm going to put that dark line in first, just so that I can see where it is. And get this back up here. I like to work with a little bit of an angle. Is that still in a good place, Ross?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. I like to work with a little bit of an angle, so I know, so gravity helps me know which way my paint's moving. And so now that line around the cat's eyes is almost black. It's a brownish tone. Okay, so I'm going to put that line in first, just so that I know where they are. And then that can dry before I do the interior of the eye. But I'm going to come in and do some of the other work first, and then I'll come back and work on those eyes closer to the end. But at least we know where they are. And let's put the pupil in there too, so it doesn't feel so much like a ghost cat. So I have a choice here. Do I start with putting in local color into the cat and then do the shadowing afterwards? Or do I do the shadowing, then dry it and come in and get some local color put in? And I can do it either direction. Doesn't totally matter as long as I don't have it piled in too much. And I know before I was starting, I was thinking, which way am I going to do this? But now, you know what I'm going to do? This is all gets painted in pieces. And so I want to do, this is my Quinacridone Rose. I'm going to do those little orangey ears next. So once I have the drawing down, then it's almost like, painting by number to work my way through here. So you've got pieces, and then it's like, well, how do I then get it working? So the cat has a little bit of fur inside its ears. And so that's the white that I'm leaving behind. I can always change that and make those darker. But I'm going to and then this is great, going to grade out. So I'm going to dampen my brush, dry it halfway, and then pick this up and drag this out. Now the cat itself is sort of white and orange. So let's go ahead and get some of that local color put in. And I'm going to start at its back. So the same orangey color that I just put in the ears, I'm going to add just a little bit of burnt sienna to it. Make it into a little bit more of a brownish color. And let's just, that's going to need a little more yellow to it. So I always keep little spare pieces of paper running around so that I can play this trial game. Yeah, I think that's going to be close.
Did you use a regular pencil, Margaret, to get those lines? Because
I did.
We can't see them, but I can barely see one of them.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to see them very well because I can barely see them either. I did. This was a separate sheet of paper, and I traced through the paper from my original drawing, and I've got an outline of the ears, and I've got an outline of the face, and a couple of things with some of the shape of the cat, but not a whole lot. So what I'm going to do now is going to help us see some of what I have going on. So let me just bring some of this. So I've just found the top of the head there. I'm going to drag this out. And there's a little lightness right on the edge of that ear. So I've got to leave that out. I'm trying not to get my hand too much in the middle of where you guys are trying to see.
Yeah, we can see very well.
Okay, so I'm not getting my hand right in the middle of the painting. We're going to be putting shadow on top of this other side, but I'm going to go ahead and put some of this local color into it. So local color is, you know, if you were standing next to the cat going, let's see, what color is that cat? This is the color that would come to your mind. And then when we do the shadows are going to change that and make it into a more muted color. And there's a shape right here. Okay. So I'm doing two things here with this. Part of it is showing the shape of the cat, and I need to soften this line before it gets dry. Take that right up to his rear end, and it can even go out into that fence just a little bit. Okay. So now that's starting to show a little bit of the shape. And now let's see the shape right here. And I don't know whether you probably, I don't think you can see this unless I put it right on top of my paint. Unfortunately, I wished I could, I'll bring it in every so often and show it to you guys. Come down, and there is a foot right in here hiding, and there's a foot right there, and this is going to come down under the ruff. So what I'm finding here is that there's a ruff to the cat right there, and then another layer of fur here. So I'm just putting in some of the shadowing, and then we'll work on the face a little bit. So I'm finding shape by finding shadows. And this is actually a shadow back in here, but I'm going to just put some color into it. And then, okay, that's the edge of this leg right here, comes down to the foot. There's a little bit there. All right. And I'm going to come in and do another color on top of that shadowing later. And then down in here, I don't think I want to put orange in that lower area because that's just the shadow and it doesn't have orange in it. So let me just come in on the eye, under the eyes here, and we're going to find the shape of the face of the cat. And he's got stripies.
If you could just show the picture again when you have a second.
Sure. There, can you see this picture there?
Uh-huh, very well, thank you.
Okay, and I'll just leave it there for the moment while I'm working on this face.
Yeah, you can see the shadows pretty well.
Yeah, and right now I'm just looking at the local color, and I'm going to be doing another color to really get those shadows in. But I want these lines to sort of follow the angle that the stripes on the cat are, so that my brush marks are helped here by this. And it's going to come down. That's the chin right there. And then the nose is very pink. So let's just put some Quinacridone Rose in there. Okay. That's light across the top, that goes to there. And we've got a little bit of, there's a line that comes off the eye here, beautiful. And that, soften this one in and bring that little bit of color up into that nose. Okay. And let's also, faces become such an important part of it, don't they? All right, so now And we can get just a little hint of this. Oh, I've got a little in there already. Okay. The shadowing side, let's see if that's dried enough. I might have to run that hairdryer for just a minute on there again. Let me do one more thing before I do, because I want to soften that. And this is coming into a furry area. Soften that a little bit. While the paint is still damp, but not totally dry, I can move it around some, although brush marks will probably show in there. But because he's got mottled fur, I don't care if I'm going to get some brush marks. Okay, so let me go ahead and dry this real quick. These eyes are telling me that I need to work on them. They're pale green, greenish yellow. This other side, it becomes much darker because it's in the shadow side. So let me just go ahead and a little bit of a highlight in there. And now there's a darkness down in the bottom of the eye right there, and a shadow all the way across that top of that eye.
And some of us who are not as experienced start with the eyes, because if you mess up the eyes, you can easily start the painting again.
Guys, you might as well forget it, right? Yeah, I always debate, do I do the eyes first, or do I get myself sort of relaxed with the painting and then come in and do the eyes? And I decided that since I got a little flustered here with this thing on my technical stuff, that I would wait and do the eyes a little bit later. Now, those are going to dry. I'll work on them some more. They're not quite done yet. And the irises, what do I want to say? The pupils are not right. Cats actually have a long slit of a pupil, and so it's not round. It's actually straight up and down. And those are going to have to dry before I can do anything with that. And I had to pick a little bit off of that, so that's going to have to dry as well. So let's go ahead and start working on some of the shadow side. And because it's out in the garden, the light coming in on the cat has green in it. And so I can do a greenish blue in on top of this orange. It will gray it down, but it'll also give sort of that green blue color to it. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this green patch that I had, add I want to, yeah, we'll do it with ultramarine blue. And I'm going to get a green blue and then a little bit more blue than that in it. So blue and orange are opposite each other on the color wheel. So, you know, opposite each other on the color wheel. So putting them together makes grays and browns. And so it'll end up with an almost gray look on that side, but it won't be dead gray like it would be if I put something like Payne's gray on there. And then I just have to be careful that I don't get too thick when I put this on. So let's see if, yeah, that's going to be about right. And there's also some places in here where there's light that comes through. And dry this just a little bit. I'm feeling like it needs to be just a little bit lighter up here at the top. And it's going to go right on out into that back. I can actually even at some points take it into the background and help maybe define some of that background when I'm at it. It's just sort of, now if I take my brush and sort of pull it up, I can get these little hair marks And so that's what I'm trying to do right now. It's going to come right to this ear. Now this ear has a little bit of shadow in it as well. So I can actually bring some of this into this ear. And at this point, I'm needing to be a little bit more careful because I'm really defining things with this shadowing. And you notice I'm stopping it unevenly so that if it starts drying on me, it's not going to look ugly.
You're just adding water now to get a little.
Yeah, I'm adding water to pull that around a little bit to make it so I can spread it.
Softer. Mm-hmm.
And then there's a space right here where there's a little light that comes through and just a tiny bit. You wouldn't think that, putting green on here would work, but it does. So, that scare you?
Yeah. Yeah.
To soften this just needs to be a little softer up there. Just coming in with a damp brush and sort of moving that around a little bit. And now I want to find, I might have to come back in here and do just a little bit more to find a few spaces. I will do that. I think that's going to be easier. I can come in through here, basically put my dark in, and then I'll come back in and I'll do some more places that are a little bit darker. So this, get that off my brush. I had a big lump of paint on my brush. So let's see, his rough. There's beautiful fur up in here. And just put that on there. And then this color here is going to shift to more of the yellowy orange at the bottom of that. So I just put some yellowy orange in there. Whoops. And now I'm going to soften that into the white space below. And this comes up, where's his face? Right here, okay. So we need this all the way up into here.
So we're coming up close to 6, Margaret. I didn't know whether you wanted to, figure out when or if you wanted to take a short break.
Okay,
I just want to let you know what time it was.
Okay, so I'm going to do this little bit of shadowing in here now that I've got this sort of wet, and then we'll let it dry and I'll be able to come back in and do the other part. So yes, that'll be good to take a break, but let me get this basically spread through here so that we know where we're at with it. Oh, that's that foot back there. Okay.
And I did mention on chat earlier that Margaret has generously agreed to auction this painting. And so we will start at 150, which is our usual starting point with a demo. And just let me know if you want to go higher, just put a bid in. And the way this works is you end up making a donation to Frank Bette in the amount of the highest bid. And then when the painting is finished, we have it at the gallery for you to pick up.
Just want to make sure that I've got this working in here. So run that down through her face. And there's a shadow running across through there and a shadow right to the top of that eye. And then at this point, it's just to there. And soften the edge. And then I think we'll be at a point where it would be good to take a break and walk away from this for a few minutes, see it from a distance, and see what in the world I've done with it. Get my nose down into it and you start losing track of everything.
It's beautiful.
It's not too bad. Huh? Not too bad. Okay, so I'll take a 5-minute break. We'll let this dry, and then I'll come back in and see where we can go with it.
All right. See everybody
Um,
soon.
I'll leave that all sitting there. I guess I can leave this here. People can maybe see.
Yeah, that's perfect. They can see it.
Okay. Someone asked something?
I was gonna wash dishes, but I figured that we just get some background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I've done here is I've actually added a little bit of burnt sienna to that green mixture to make a little bit darker color here. And I'm just gonna add a little, I want a little feeling of that texture of the fur to happen.
So Margaret, if you can move your painting up about 1 inch, no more, just an inch. And then you can move the cat photo up. Perfect, right there. Then the cat, now that's great. So now they can see the shadow you're working on.
Okay, if I go even a little bit further, is it still in the picture?
Yeah, that's good right there.
We can lose the top of that without any problem.
Right, now that's perfect.
Okay. Okay, so I'm still using that green blue, which was what was it? It was my ultramarine blue and sap green.
Sap green, yeah.
And a little bit of burnt sienna in there to dull it down. And now I'm adding a little bit more burnt sienna in as I work my way in here to get some little bit darker spaces in this shadowing, and also then to accent some more of the color of the cat here as it works around. So this whole side, if we look at the value card, so my value card, my value in there is way up into this color. And what I had down was still pretty light. So I can go quite a bit darker and have it just perfect. So it doesn't feel like it when you're doing it. You're going, ooh, that's really dark. But then it's not really dark. It really can be much darker.
So it's not unusual to do a couple layers of shadow on top of each other?
I always do a couple layers. You know what, when I first put it down, a lot of it is what I would call my roadmap, you know, to get those colors in where I want them. And actually this needs to go even darker. So let me just take that right over to the edge. I'm not someone who can just dive in and have it exactly how I want it to start with. So I know I'm going to come in and do several layers and maybe sissy foot myself in there a bit to get it the way I want, so I don't dive in too fast and cause, you know, make things that I don't like. So I'm doing a little wet and wet work here where I'm just adding a little bit of color to that to make some darker spaces. And let's see, as it comes into this, we want that to be just a little, okay, a little darker. Okay. Now work my way down through here. I'll finish working my way in here on the body before I start. And I'm gonna be sorry I didn't mix up even more color while I was doing my break. Okay. And until we get sort of rough around the cat's face, there's a lighter area, but the rest of this is relatively dark back here. But not that tail. That tail is light, except for the shadow here. And then the rest of this, his body comes in and it's pretty dark, comes right down his leg until we get to the body. Let's see, the top of the foot. So I'm looking at the top of the foot right here, and then how this body looks. So now I've got to paint up into and get some feeling of the fur up in here. And there's a shadow underneath of the foot here and back into that corner. And there's another foot back there that's actually somewhat light. And then this is the leg. Bring that up and get the fur going there. So this thing of, you know, people ask me, you know, how do you get fur to happen? Fur is what happens on the edge. And so you can get fur by painting what that edge looks like. I'm going to come in and work in that in just a minute, but let me get this area here. Come to the top of the foot. And then it needs to soften out into her fur, his fur. Actually, this is a male cat. This cat was known as Cece until he was adopted by one of my neighbors because he liked to visit everybody in the neighborhood. Now he doesn't come outside very much. She doesn't think he should, which is probably good for him in the end. And then this other foot back here, it's a little darker. It's actually wrapping over that edge of that board. There's a light part on it, and then it's dark underneath of it. Okay.
think the hardest part would be to get the angles right, because he's not upright, you know, he's at an angle.
He's what he's standing on is on an angle. The cat himself is upright, but the board that he's on is on an angle. And so he's having to sort of balance himself on that. And that is, you're right, that's a little tricky game. And now let's work this through here. It feels like it needs to be a little more yellowy green. I've almost got it gray there. Let me just add a little more of this green in here. And it's going to come up onto the side of that face. We have been working with people's faces, and getting skin tones is always so tricky. But the thing that is easy to forget is that there's a lot of colors actually in the light that bounces around. And so, you know, with a white cat like this, it's picking up and bouncing all the colors around it. So you get a real range of colors in here. Okay. Now, I think the next thing, I'm going to need to let that dry a little bit before I can work on the face. So let me come in and try and make it a little more clear what's happening with this post that he's standing on. And it's almost a greenish gray. Okay. Just want 2 or 3 colors here to sort of work with. Okay. So off the bottom of there. That's the front corner. So perspective wise, it's going to be wider in the front than it is in the back. Throw a little bit of green in here, greenish blue, and then I bring right up next to, and then there's some lines that go through here. I'm going to paint up onto that and then lift it back off the foot. Bring a little color back in underneath of there. And then as this shifts to the other side, this feels it's a little more greenish. There it's still dark. And maybe a little ups and downs there. Now let's get this sort of dark color in here. I have a shadow. Let's see. This is the shadow. And let's just get the edge of that a little tiny bit. And then, because I don't want this really strong, I'm going to just go ahead and pull this along to make that darker, but not totally dark. And then it's going to hit some of those leaves. And then it's a little bit darker back in here. Oh, this is the other post. And once again, we've got shadowing underneath of here. Coming to the edge of that post. I'm not wanting this super defined, but it's got to be enough that it's somewhat readable. There's a leaf there. So if I paint around those leaves just a little bit, maybe one of the leaves is throwing the shadow. And
So when you finish this section, if you can show us the photo to see where.
yeah, so the photo.
There it is.
we've got this post that's sort of leaning, and then there's some shadowing that runs in underneath the here, and then there's a few leaves down in here that we're wanting to sort of semi-define, but not really strongly. And actually, let me just put that right there. And then that can find the edge of one of those other leaves. Another little shadow underneath it here that's going to find one of those leaves, and maybe a little darkness there to make that look like a leaf. And let me just lift a little off of this leaf right here.
Which green is that now, Margaret?
This is actually, I'm digging into my leaf green. It's a sap green with yellow in it, basically.
Okay.
It's a Holbein leaf green. One of my students turned me on to it. It's a pretty color.
Mm-hmm.
Want a little dark light here to make these leaves sort of stand out just a little bit. And yeah, that was an edge of that post there just a little bit. Okay. And there's another little dark place over here. Let those leaves stand out some. And then let's just get a little bit of wood grain stuff here. Okay, I think that's enough to make that stand out. I know another little thing I can do. I can just lift just a little light spot right here. I'm seeing a little light spot on the end of that, and that could get a little bit lighter right there. Hopefully it's not too light. Okay. How's my time doing, Roz? Am I going to get this face finished?
You're at 6:16 right now.
I'm at what?
6:16.
Oh, okay. So I still have
45 minutes.
45 minutes. Well, I've got enough time to ruin this face.
The wall is great.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were doing sap green. I think at this point I need to move into my smaller brush. So I like this thing of, sort of getting the big stuff together and then working my way into the finish. Of course, it means that if this face gets totally screwed, then I've got lots of paper to cut up for something else. All right, so what do I want to do next? Those eyes, there's actually a little bit of orangeness here. And same with across that top. And then this eye is going to be much, much darker. There's some light in it, so I'm putting down some of that dark, and then I'm going to just lift a little bit to get this little glow feeling of a round eye. And you can have that same green darker green put in right here. And I've got to lift it just a little bit and soften it. And then once this dries, then I can come in. No, this can't be quite like that. I'll come in and do a dark line around that eye again, and then we'll do the irises. So now that this is drying just a little bit, I can lift some of that. Okay. And I don't like this hard line right there. That's got to soften. Now for this face. Mixing some of my greenish with a burnt sienna mixture to make sort of a greeny brown. And we can now start finding real dark spaces here. So there's a line right here, works its way onto the nose and up to the brow. Here, you guys want to see this, don't you? Actually, Roz, I'm going to bring this the other way.
Okay.
Don't mind. And
Yeah, that'll
put
be fine.
there.
Perfect. We can see both.
Good.
Wanted to let everybody know that after the demos are done, they're free to everyone. We always appreciate donations to help us, but and that's one of the reasons why we auction the paintings as well. But we also record the event, and Margaret's gotten quite good at editing. So once the demos are done, we end up posting them under our, actually added a section called demos, and we add them all back so that anyone who wants to see them can watch them again for free. And we have really a number of very good ones. We've done one every month now since I want to say February or March. And so there's some really nice ones up there.
August was our first one.
August, excuse me. I don't even know what day it is, let alone.
I know. We started doing them because, well, we do a plein air paint out every year where we invite artists from around the country to come and paint in Alameda. And because we couldn't do that this year, we decided to try and do these demos so that people can have a chance to see how other artists paint. And so the first couple of them were our plein air artists. And then we've had a variety of other artists also paint.
And we're going to have more plein air artists in the future there as we get closer to the paint out, which we hope will actually happen in August this year, July, late July, August. Folks are hoping to come back, and we're planning on them being able to come back. And by that time, we should be able to host them in our homes as we have in the past, assuming everyone is getting vaccinated. But people are at much higher rates, so it's very encouraging.
Just go ahead and put this all the way through here, get that dark side of the face going. It's always scary to put these darks on because then you think, oh, it's going to just be too dark. But when I start looking at the values, I really have to be pretty dark on this side. And then it's soft right along this forehead area, and then it comes over a little bit darker right up to that eye. And let's soften into the overhead up here. And soften that just a little bit because that shadow coming in through there is and it's gotten a little too green, and I just need a little more blue in that mixture. Let's just add a little more blue in here. That's a little better. Starting to feel like that green reflection was a little too strong. That's pretty dark right there. Soften this edge. And then it's a little darker right underneath of the here, out into there.
For the fundraiser, we're having David Salviano will be painting someone's house. That is not putting a coat of paint, but doing a watercolor painting. And that's being auctioned at this point. Paint My House. That's usually something that we do during the plein air paint out when the plein air artists will go and paint a house. But we're using that right now for the fundraiser. And the other opportunity is to paint my garden. Artist Andrea Bishop is going to be painting someone's garden. So that should be pretty special too. Margaret has some classes that are also available for auction. So you can get 6 of your besties to come and enjoy a demo, and we'll provide the wine and the snacks, and it'll probably be, is that going to be one session, Margaret, or is that over time?
It was set up that it could either be one session or it could be 2 sessions, the buyer's choice. And it could be online if someone would prefer that it be online. I'm gonna have to let that dry a little bit more before we can really get into that face. So what more do I need to do here? This ear has to go into shadow, so it needs a little bit of thin blue on it. A little bit of this blue gray on here. And just thin that now and spread that out a little thinner. That works better. So it still has that beautiful feeling of orange, but puts that into shadow. And it comes up just a little bit there, comes over here just a little bit more. Okay. And I'm feeling like I need to go just a little bit orangish in this light space that I had up here. Is this dry down here? Yeah, let's go ahead and dig to get a little bit darker underneath of the paws here. Pull a shadow off of there. Shadow can go right into that is the shadow area. So this paw and darker in underneath of there. Bring this as a shadow across that, find that shadow, and then over and out. And then this little guy can refirm up that edge and make that a little bit darker back behind that. Okay. And that edge is a little bit darker edge. Okay, guys, what else do I have to do on this? I have to finish the eyes and the nose a little bit, but I might have to take the dryer to that before I can, because I'm afraid it's going to move too much. And maybe I've gotten this a little too dark and muddy feeling right there.
You can see the fur very well. That came across quite well.
Yeah. And to this eye, let's get that roundness to that eye happening. I don't, no, it's just a little bit damp. That's better. Mouth. And there's some whisker lines here, which I could lift with the tip of my brush just a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you ever came in afterwards and used like a China white or something to whip up the whiskers.
I might do that. I've got a little pen here that once it's totally dry, I can put some more white on there. There's a whisker coming out of right up here that I sort of lost, which could be picked out that way. And same with some of these off the eyebrows at the top there. And
Do you have a special, what do they call it? A really long, not a dagger. What do they call those long skinny brushes?
oh yeah, a rigger.
Rigger, thank you.
I've got one, but I don't use it as often as some of the other people do. The advantage of the long skinny like that is it holds quite a lot of paint. And so you can really get a nice long line out of it.
And Marcy was commenting how it was like magic to see the furry cat emerge from the shadows, in balance with the shadows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I first start and it's white, then you know, it doesn't feel quite right, but that getting that balance is so important, isn't it?
Some of us are taking a class with Margaret and we're doing portraits. And it seems like if you know someone's face, it is so much harder to do a portrait of a person than an animal, even though, you know, seems like animals are a little more forgiving somehow.
Well, you don't have to do skin tones for one thing. Well, we're getting close here, you guys. Comes a point when I know I should really stop, and then I start seeing more things. But I've got to be careful not to get unbalanced and get something that's too strong. That guy can go fairly dark. And oh, this foot down here needs to balance out a little bit more too. And same with that foot there. And this shouldn't be really bright white in underneath of him. Get a little bit of color on this. because I want him to be the brightest color there, and just let that die down just a little bit so that it has a little light color on it.
So Jerry, you were telling me something on chat. You may want to finish that sentence. This was wonderful. Yes. Yeah, folks are really enjoying it. The colors are really beautiful on the cat.
Okay, I think I better stop before I screw